Hello everyone, welcome to today's video where we will be talking about the state of Michigan, more specifically Michigan Senate race that is up in 2024. So if you watched my 2024 Senate prediction that I uploaded earlier this week, which I'd appreciate actually if you check out after this video, if you have the chance of course. But you may remember me mentioning that current Senator Debbie Stabenow from Michigan is retiring after her term is up in 2024. That means that she will not be seeking re-election, and this seat will be open for the 2024 Senate election. But if she were to run again in 2024, then she would technically be running for her she'd be running for her fifth term, I believe, to the United States Senate. But she has already announced that she won't be seeking re-election, meaning that this Senate seat will for sure be an open seat um, for the 2024 presidential election. And this election coincides. The Senate elections, of course, coincide with the 2024 presidential election in this case. And but we but something to know is that open seats, they tend to be more competitive than elections where the incumbent is running. Um, and Michigan is not a solid state for either Democrats or Republicans, but Michigan is technically Michigan is a swing state. It's a purple state. Um, but in this video specifically, we'll be talking about why Democrats actually shouldn't be so worried about losing this Senate seat specifically in 2024. Let me explain. Let me explain by first taking you back to the 2022 elections that occurred not too long ago in the state of Michigan. Um, let's see. So this is the governor's election that happened in the 2022 midterm elections that just occurred not too long ago. And in this election, Michigan governor, who is the incumbent Governor Gretchen Whitmer, she defeated the Republican Tudor Dixon by 11 percentage points, which is a landslide in a swing state like Michigan. These numbers aren't usually heard of in the state, especially 11 percentage points for a candidate. Given that even some polls are showing that this race is going to be much closer if the nominee Tudor Dixon somebody else, were to be somebody else running against them, being the current governor of the state. But in 2022 was not as good of a year for Democrats as 2018 was. This was when Whitmer was first elected in 2020. No, sorry, 2018. But that was a blue wave for Democrats in 2018, and for Gretchen Whitmer to beat her margin of victory in 2018, where that was a better year for Democrats. In this election, 2022, where it was not such a favorable year for Democrats, or not as favorable as 2018. It was not a blue wave year. It was just a neutral year, if we're being honest. That's pretty impressive for a Democrat in the state. This is to say that Michigan is not, although it is a purple state, it's a swing state. It's not super. It's not as in the middle as other states like, say, Wisconsin is, which is neighboring Michigan. But there is some kind of Democratic bias or Democratic lean to the state. But it's a totally winnable race for Republicans as well. And some actually may point out in this election specifically that Tudor Dixon was a weak Republican nominee for governor during this election, and I do agree with that. That is true. She was a weak nominee for Republicans. They could have chosen somebody way better. Their better candidate was disqualified from even running in the election. But the unfortunate thing for Republicans is that they don't really have a strong bench of candidates to pull from in general in the state of Michigan compared to the Democratic bench of nominees or candidates that they could pull from. And we're actually going to take a look at and compare the GOP's potential candidates aside with potential nominees that Democrats may prop up for the Senate seat in 2024, given that it will be an open seat. So let's do that. This is the list of the the potential Democratic or declared candidates for the 2024 Senate election in Michigan. And upon first glance on the list, we have some pretty recognizable names in the state. Names like Garland Garland Gilchrist. Garland Gilchrist is the current lieutenant governor of Michigan, and he's currently serving with Governor Gretchen Whitmer. That is a statewide elected position, and given that this is not Gilchrist's first term in the as lieutenant governor in the state, it's pretty good that it's pretty good for Democrats that they have um, a recognizable Democrat statewide that has won in the past and has won again. He has credibility to his name. Um, People, well, although it's not all statewide Democrats um, that could run for the Senate seat, that could be potentially strong candidates as well. We have people like Elisa Slotkin. She's a representative from the state of Michigan as well. Well, not as well, but she is a representative from the state of Michigan. Um, and she is a Democrat in a Republican-leaning district. But she won here in 2022 by a pretty considerable margin in Michigan. And that's the case for many Democratic representatives in the state who are in purple or red-leaning districts, but they seem to be popular in their districts, and they won by a pretty considerable margin in 2022, where this margin was supposed to be, or these districts are supposed to be like flips for Republicans, but they ended up just being holds for Democrats or flips for Democrats even in other districts as well in the state of Michigan. So people like Elisa Slotkin, people in her position, or Slotkin herself, they can appeal to independent-leaning voters in the state because she's won these voters before, and these representatives in the state have won these voters before. They have that experience, given that they have won in these elections. But let's move down to the Republicans, to the list of potential Republican. Actually, I do see some more names here that are pretty recognizable as well, but they're not publicly expressed interest. They're potential candidates. So we don't know for sure if it's going to be a no or yes for these potential candidates. But we have Jocelyn Benson, who is the current Secretary of State from the state of Michigan. That's another statewide position that she won back in 2018, but she was able to retain her position in 2022. Also won by a considerable margin in the state. We also have Mallory McMorrow. Mallory McMorrow here. She has the smallest constituency compared to the other names that we have already named in this list, but she's just a state senator, and I don't mean to diminish the position of being a state senator from the state of Michigan, but she is technically the when it comes to representation, she does represent the smallest base, but she probably does have a good considerable name recognition in the state because she's currently serving a swing seat in the state of Michigan. It was a Republican leaning seat that she's representing, but she won it a few times already. And she also gave a speech before that went pretty viral on the internet, and I believe that at this point it's accumulated about 15 million views. And she gained some massive recognition from that one video that she from that one speech that she made that was shared as a video and many people viewed. She got recognition from that, and she's on the potential list because she has not publicly expressed interest in running for the Senate seat, but she does have some credibility there. And then we have the decline list, but we won't get too much into that as we know who's basically not running for the seat. And then we have the Republican primary with candidates for the Senate seat on the Republican side. And we have some Republican representatives who are representing solid red districts, which it throws out the argument that these candidates have experience appealing to independent voters. I do believe, given that Republicans here are not the strongest in the state, they wouldn't really be able to get the votes of independent voters, given that they don't work within that constituency, they don't work within that kind of district. They can do whatever they want and know that they're still going to win re-election. which is not something that somebody in a purple district can do. People like Lisa Slot can, like mentioned earlier. But we do have former Representative Peter Meyer from the state of Michigan, who he was a representative from here, but he was ousted by his state party in the 2022 primary because he voted to impeach Trump in the second impeachment trial, and many of those Republicans that voted to impeach Trump in the House, they ended up losing the primary to run for re-election in their districts. So that's exactly what happened to Peter Meyer. Peter Meyer lost the primary, and then a more right-leaning Republican won his primary in the district, and then ended up losing to the Democrat in the general election. And then that became a flip for Democrats. I believe it was Michigan's third congressional district, if I'm correct. Don't quote me on that though, I may be wrong. But he himself, Peter Meyer in this case, he may win over some independent voters, but he will probably lack any support from his own party, given that they did oust him originally in the primary to rerun him in the district that he was representing. So I don't see him getting any Republican support in that kind of form. And in politics, you can't really expect to run and win an election if you don't have your own base, if your base doesn't even support you. And the Republican Party has made it clear that they will not be supporting Peter Meyer if he were to run. He did run for a re-election, but ended up losing, and the same story would probably happen if he ran for the Senate. I don't see him, although he may appeal to independents more, I don't see him getting the support he needs from his own party to even have a chance at winning in this case. And then we can move on to the potential list for Republicans. But looking down, who do you really have? I mean, you may remember me mentioning earlier that James Craig. James Craig was the disqualified candidate who was going to run against Gretchen Whitmer, and he was actually in polls. He looked pretty competitive against Gretchen Whitmer, but the unfortunate thing is for James Craig is that he was disqualified from even running in the primary to be the Republican nominee for governor in the state of Michigan of his campaign submitted signatures that were forged, and therefore he was disqualified by the Secretary of State's office, and he was not able to run in that election. But the funny thing here is that this kind of story came out regarding somebody that who cited voter fraud claims in the 2020 presidential election, the election now President Joe Biden won against former President Trump, and many Republicans touted voter fraud and said the election was rigged. James Craig was no different. He did actually make some allegations that the election was stolen, or maybe not that extreme, but he did infer that after the election was concluded, and that may not be a good look in the state of Michigan, given that Democrats just blew out the state, just blew out Republicans in the state in 2022, and Michigan was one of those very crucial states in the 2020 election that was very close, but ended up not going in the direction of the Republican Party. And with people like the failed Republican nominee for governor, Tudor Dixon, who lost against Gretchen Whitmer, still on the list, and even people like Ryan Kelly, he's not that well known of a name, but he did try to run for governor of. He did run for governor of Michigan, but lost in the primary inevitably to Tudor Dixon. But he was actually arrested for attending the January 6th insurrection, and he was later charged for that action, which was not a good look. But he is still considering a run for the Senate, given that it is now an open seat, and he's even on this potential list. He should be on the decline list. He shouldn't even be considered for the seat, given that he would probably hand Democrats for sure the seat again, without even no questions asked, given his past. But as of right now, these candidates are pretty lackluster for the GOP, and I honestly do not see it getting much better due to how previous elections were fumbled by the Republicans in the state. But it is still early, and we'll have to see what happens later. We do not know who's gonna inevitably be the nominees for both parties, and the environment we're gonna be entering for 2024. At this point in time, we don't know if it's gonna be a red leaning year, a blue leaning year, or just like 2022, a no bias. So like there's just a no favorability for either side. It's just a neutral year. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. A neutral year for both parties, which ended up happening in 2022. But circling back to my original point in Michigan, Democrats really shouldn't be so worried about the 2024 Senate seat. In my most recent and my only so far Senate prediction for 2024, I have Michigan rated as a likely state, and this is because I believe Democrats are in a very favorable position in the state, given their strong bench of candidates compared to the bench that Republicans have to offer. But Democrats shouldn't really worry too much about the state, given that they have West Virginia, Arizona, Montana, Ohio, Wisconsin, Nevada, states that are more that they hold currently that will be competitive, much more competitive than the state of Michigan, and they are going to want to hold on to those seats given the narrow Senate majority that they have right now. And yeah, that's basically why I don't think Democrats should worry about Michigan too much. It's more in their direction than it is for Republicans. And on the other hand, it should realistically on the other hand, Republicans should realistically search for their top tier candidate before the 2024 primaries and invest more in the state of Michigan that compared to just letting it play out between the people who are running. They should actually invest in someone that they believe actually has a chance at winning in a state like Michigan. Or else I do see a repeat of 2022 happening in the state again, where like we said earlier, where somebody like Tudor Dixon, a Republican, that was not so strong, loses to the Democrat by a considerable margin, given despite Michigan's supposed competitive nature. It is totally winnable for either side, like I said earlier, but it's an easy race to fumble, in this case for Republicans, and I do believe that it's gonna be Democrats' race to lose, given that I do have it rated as a likely state for them at this point in time. If it does end up flipping, I'd be shocked, right? I'd be shocked if it did flip in 2024. But it is early, and we do not know what's going to end up happening. But aside from all that, thank you all so much for watching today's video. If you enjoy this type of content, then please like and subscribe while leaving suggestions in the comments. I really do appreciate it. Take care, everyone.